Saludos a toda la afición de la lucha libre. Este que les habla es Michael Morales Torres, integrante del equipo de lucha libre online, y tenemos el enorme privilegio de presentarles a nuestro invitado en la tarde de hoy de Minneapolis, Minnesota, para el mundo. 2 veces campeón mundial en pareja de SmackDown, 1 vez campeón mundial en pareja de NXT, anteriormente conocido como Erick Rowan, actualmente Erick Redbeard. Mr. Erick, how are you doing today?
Doing great. How about yourself?
Everything's great so far here in Puerto Rico. It's nice to know you are doing well. Thank you so much for your time. I wanted to start the interview asking you, how does it feel to be a free agent during this pandemic situation?
It's actually, when it happens, it's quite the surprise. Just because there was like Gallows and Anderson specifically had just signed 5-year deals.
Oh, wow.
Worth a lot of money, and they were throwing money out at guys. I had recently myself just signed a 3-year deal, and so like the timing of it all was much of a surprise, especially considering they were still putting on weekly television shows, which was part of the reasons a lot of guys were getting the raises to begin with, because they wanted them for the television. So at first there was the shock. And then there's excitement because a lot of guys aren't given a fair shake for creative reasons or whatever. And there's so many talented guys that got released that weren't given, a fair shake with the company. A guy comes to mind right away is Erick Young, who,
Yes.
Has so much to offer, and they couldn't even get him on TV. I think I tagged with him once on Main Event, and he was constantly out. There's not a big audience for something like that, and there's no storylines to truly show a guy like that's talent. So at first, when he get released, it's everyone's like, oh, okay, well, that was a guaranteed job. And in this environment, it's like, okay, well, I can't just leave and go wrestle somewhere else because there's no live audience to wrestle in front of, unless you go to another television product, which is going to be the same thing. You come in, they might give you an opportunity, but you still have to have that boss that tells you what to do, how to do it. But from the sounds of it, other places will let you be more creative with what you want. So the initial shock and awe, you get bummed, you're down on yourselves, but then other opportunities come out and you get excited, and it just makes you look forward to the future.
I had the opportunity to speak with specifically Erick Young, and he's at this point pretty happy. He feels free, as well as many of the wrestlers right now. So I know in the time we will see Erick Redbeard at a stage. So far, have you been contacted by any mainstream company, or are you interested in maybe participating in any mainstream wrestling company? Wrestling or non-wrestling related?
I mean, wrestling's obviously my love. Like, that's something I really enjoy to do. I've been contacted by some places, but I haven't had serious stuff anywhere. No.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about yourself. What and who inspired Erick Redbeard to become a pro wrestler?
Ooh, good question. So, I vaguely remember as a kid watching it, like the old, closed circuit pay-per-views that you'd see on television, Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, that kind of stuff, Andre the Giant. And it's a very vague, thing, because what, 5-6 years old, how much do you really remember from back then? It wasn't until about 99, 2000, I was about a junior, senior in high school, I started watching again, like WWF. And then I started watching a little WCW, ECW in college. And I started to really think, oh, this is really cool. I think I watched Tess Kane wrestle at some pay-per-view, from home. And I was thinking to myself, well, Tess, he's like 6'6", 6'7", like, he's a big guy. I maybe do. I was playing football at the time, and I think me and my buddy would always watch the monthly pay-per-views like in 2000, 2001. And we were taking bumps in the wrestling room floor. Like, we didn't know what we were doing. We were just having fun watching it, fooling around. And I ended up going to a couple indie shows where I saw Jerry Lynn wrestle another local guy from Minnesota. And it was a show for Eddie Sharkey. And when I was there, I think I talked a little bit. Jerry and the other indie guys there recommended Eddie if I wanted to train. So I quit college and I started to, my journey into professional wrestling back in 2002. And that's kind of how I got started.
Yeah, every career has a humble beginning. You were playing college football at Minnesota at that point, I think. And as far as we know, your family is all the way from Norway, right?
Actually, I don't know why people think my family. My great-grandfather came here with nothing from Norway and immigrated to the States. Very humble. Gave up a lot for a better life for his family, and I'm very grateful because Minnesota is my home, and it always will be.
Awesome, and you come definitely from an interesting tradition. Then you decide to enter to the pro wrestling industry. How were you approached by WWE, and who got you the tryout opportunity for the first time?
Okay, so around 2006, I had my son Gavin, and I was a single father. And I'm just kind of going back to kind of give a backstory to this. So I'm a single father. I'm still wrestling on the weekends. I take a chance face, go to Harley Race's camp, where I was introduced with the Noah camp in Japan. I ended up leaving my son with my parents and going for 3 months in Japan, wrestling, learning, doing tours. And when I came back, Harley wanted me to move to Eldon to wrestle and continue a relationship with Japan. But being a single father, I couldn't do that. Later on in life, because I went in Japan in 2007. So later on, maybe 2010, I was content with wrestling on the weekends, just having fun, working a full-time job, supporting the family. And it came apart. There was a FCW recruit page that WWE was putting out. So I sent in a tape, put a bio in, and probably about a week later, I got a call back saying, we want to fly you out to Florida for a tryout. This is with Florida Championship Wrestling, which was their developmental territory, the WWE. I mean, I jumped on the chance because, chances like that don't come around too often. Had a try match with Dr. Tom. Steve Kern was in the ring. I think it was with Jacob Novak was my tryout. But yeah, wrestled in the ring. I flew back home. Didn't think too much of it, but maybe about 4 or 5 days later, I got a contract offer, and within the next couple months, I quit my job for a lot less money, and I moved my whole family down to Florida.
Which is an important decision because at that point, Florida was becoming the capital of pro wrestling in the United States. Then FCW evolved into what we know now as NXT. You were part of a pretty particular group that caused an incredible impression all around the world, and we're talking about the Wyatt family. At that point, who came up with that idea?
Everything kind of happened organically because Bray was coming from the Harris character. They put him back down to Florida developmental territory. So he was in a slump. He didn't know what to do. He had to switch his characters, what they wanted him to do. So I think he had like an Axel Mulligan character, which was kind of like a take of, Jason from Friday the 13th. He wore like the kind of weird hockey mask and wrestled. But then he kind of transformed himself into the Bray Wyatt character you saw when the Wyatt family debuted. I was doing a Viking character, which I was told to drop later on. And while I was doing that, he was making vignettes. And one of the vignettes that he made with the Wyatt family, which would become the Wyatt family, Harper was in that video as like the first son. So then they debuted that when NXT started, Bray Wyatt with his first son, Luke Harper. And then I was kind of brought in as the second son. Kind of no planning. They didn't have an outfit for me. I didn't know what I was going to wear the day of. And, you know, I know we had tried some promos and me trying to wear like pajamas and stuff like that, you know, because I was just coming from the Viking characters wearing these trunks with, you know, Viking symbols on the back. And I was like, well, what am I going to wear? Like, we get to TV and you're going to work a squash match versus this guy. You're going to be the second son of the Wyatt family. Okay, well, what am I going to wear? And no one had an answer for me. Nothing like, hey, we're going on TV in a few hours. What am I going to wear? So luckily I did a Norwegian reality show before I got signed with the company. So in the trunk of my car, I still had a farm outfit, like coveralls that were green with reflective covering. There was long sleeves. So I pulled it out. I'm like, well, this will work. So I cut the sleeves off, and hence the Wyatt family coverall look was debuted. And then fast forward to when we finally get called up to the roster. Luckily, we were doing all these, you know, promos in class and with Dusty Rhodes. And remember, Wyndham, it had to be like a pig mask and sheep mask, and there was like a clear mask, which I cut the bottom off and put like makeup on it and put it on me. It was weird looking. So I tried all these different masks, and Dusty didn't like a lot of the masks, kept calling the sheep mask the pig mask. We had like a clown mask. We had all sorts of different masks, and he didn't really like. He's like, your face, you know, it's money, it's ugly, and so I kind of forgot about it. And the same thing with the coverall thing. It just happened to be in my trunk when we were filming the vignettes to go on the main roster, and I pulled out the sheep one because I liked that one, and I said, can we use this? And they used it, and I didn't take it off until I was told to take it off after the Bludgeon Brothers.
Yeah, and the rest is history. You
Yep.
picked up basically you pick up the outfit and the mask. So it was your gimmick was basically your idea. You came up to the main roster. You have many incredible feuds. You had stable run with the Wyatt family. Then you have Bludgeon Brothers. You have a singles run at one point with the Rubik's Cube with the high IQ guy. That was a particular gimmick. Who came up with the idea, and did you enjoy your singles run before the Daniel Bryan and everything?
So I think it was like a singles run and a half. It's kind of what I take it. Like the first time they basically ended up being with the Rubik's Cube was the silliest thing I think I've ever seen in my life. So Sheamus ends up getting hurt. They didn't really quite know what to do with me. They split up the family. They had me, walking around aimlessly backstage. And Sheamus gets hurt like the week before Survivor Series. And they're like, oh no, we need somebody. Luckily, I was still backstage. I think I was changed just watching at Gorilla. And I think it was Michael Hayes comes out. It's like, oh, get dressed. You're out the next segment, next commercial.
Oh, wow.
Quick, got changed. Brody's in the ring. He has no idea I'm coming out as the last member for the Survivor Series. Nobody did when I walked out. So it was just kind of one of those weird timing things, being there, being ready. And so I remember, like, it was like a week or two later, after I didn't really have any plans for maybe a feud with the Big Show. And they're like, oh, we need a story about him. And I think it was Tom Phillips did like a backstage interview, and it was like maybe like less than a minute long. And he says, well, I hear you're really smart and this and that. And he started calling me a genius and high IQ. And I'm like, where is this stuff coming from? It's just a quick little promo. And that's the only time anybody's ever said anything about it. But for some reason I became genius off of somebody just telling me I was a genius in a backstage. I've never seen a 60-second, backstage interview stick with somebody who doesn't talk for so long. I didn't say a word, but so many people thought I was this big genius now who could do a Rubik's Cube, even though I didn't solve it for like 2 weeks.
But you did look great with that Rubik's Cube, which is part of the magic.
Ideally, it's another thing looking in wrestling. I don't think that singles run worked because I was a babyface who never won a televised match. If you go back, the only match I won as a babyface was against Cesaro, the SmackDown before Survivor Series, to give me a win to make me look credible. And then I did not win one match the whole run as a babyface. And whenever you're working a bad heel, the babyface has to kick the heel's ass. And if he doesn't kick the heel's ass, what's there to cheer for? The guy, he's just a loser. Like, there's no guy's going to want to cheer for a loser.
And that's part of...
I was going to say, it's like Stone Cold. If he always lost during his matches back in the day, but he still went out and grabbed the beers and said, "Hey, I lost, but hey, I'm going to chug a beer." But then he turns around and takes somebody else's finisher. Would that have gotten as over as he did? You never know.
No, I actually wanted to speak about that. You mentioned that the singles run didn't work due to what we may call incorrect booking in terms of pro wrestling logic, due to the singles babyface not being pushed in the correct way. I mean, babyface need to be credible in order for people to cheer for them. Let's talk about backstage politics. As I mentioned before the interview, I had the opportunity to speak, for example, EC3, Erick Rowan, Doug Gallows, Levy Valence, which was No Way Jose, Matt Rewall, which was Aiden English, among many of the guys, and they basically all agree that the backstage politics are the most complicated part in WWE, specifically the overproduced segments. As far as I know, and specifically even the Colons even told that part to me, everything is entirely scripted. You need to read everything word by word. What about the creative freedom of a pro wrestler, or in this case, a sports entertainer? What's your opinion, and what was your experience backstage on WWE?
For some reason, always figured me in and always had me on the show. I can't complain about that. But when you're given certain things, and it's hard, like it was hard because I always wanted to say a lot more than I was given. And sadly, it wasn't until like 6 years in that I'm able to start cutting longer promos, which I did with the Daniel Roman angle. And that was incredibly frustrating to me because I knew I could speak. And to be a character that can't speak and you control the booking, you're always trying to think of different ways on how to get a guy who can't speak the front and center of attention. And it's not always possible, which is why I changed my mask from time to time, because I wanted to create a character within that. So I had always changed the masks and the looks, and I wanted it to kind of be able to tell a story without having to speak. And the same thing with Daniel. When I was put with Daniel originally, I thought it was a step back from the Bludgeons, because in the Bludgeons, me and Harper were together, a unit, different people. But with Daniel, it was always, I was his bodyguard. It was basically what I looked at, even though I was told it wasn't supposed to be. Even when we were tag champs, I just felt like the bodyguard. They never gave me anything to really say outside of a one-liner, and that was frustrating, which is why I started wearing the metal shirts when I was in the background, because I wanted to show like what I, personally, I enjoy going to shows and metal. And I wanted to show personality because they took my mask away. I couldn't have these different masks and these different looks, but I wanted to just represent, the metal community and give people, new bands to look at that I enjoyed, and still have people looking at me, even though Daniel might be the one speaking and the attention, in the ring. So it wasn't until like an accident that they started like writing me a promo. And you talk about word for word, that first promo they gave me with Daniel and Roman, I changed and ad-libbed a little bit in that promo. And when I came to the back, they weren't mad at me. In fact, they started giving me a promo the week after, and the week after that, they gave me 2 in one. I could do a backstage with Michael Cole and then another one. So they started adding more and more, and I started getting more comfortable on the microphone. And I think the hardest thing creatively for me after that was when they did the brand split and put me on Raw and put Harper and Roman and Daniel on the other side. I was like, okay, well, what's next? I'm excited. But then I'm told, you have a cage and now you're quiet. And no matter what you pitch for the cage, doesn't matter, because it's going to be this, as much as you don't want it to be. And you're also going to be quiet. You're not going to speak. So any kind of character development you had, it's gone. And that was frustrating for a guy, any guy, to go from getting more of a character and feeling it out and being more you, to having to go play and act a certain way.
Yeah, because basically, at least Aubrey Edwards, the ref from AEW, mentioned that WWE referees, unfortunately, are not allowed to have personality. But at this point, many wrestlers are not allowed to have a personality. If they want you at a certain role, that's what you have. But you had many different roles. You have different roles all the time. You were part of the Wyatt family. You were part of the Bludgeons. You had the gimmick with the cage. You also had the Daniel Bryan unintentional bodyguard gimmick. You have multiple roles. You had a good run, in my opinion, at inside the company. You even had the opportunity to face The Rock. It was complicated at WrestleMania. I mean, that's everyone's dream, man. But it was kind of sweet sour opportunity or moment. How was that moment for you?
In hindsight, you always want to have a one-on-one match at Mania. You want to have a match. Unfortunately, the match consisted of one move, and it's for a record. It was what it was. I'd rather have done that match than done anything else that night outside of having like a long match. But to be in the ring with somebody of that caliber, even if it was just a segment and not a match in my eye, I wouldn't give it up for anything.
Yeah, it's basically Hollywood's highest paid actor. And you had the opportunity to work with multiple people, from John Cena, The Rock, The Shield, among many other names. Which was your favorite person to work, and why?
Ooh. I mean, I worked a lot of the matches I'm most proud of were actually the house shows.
Oh, wow.
When we didn't have the creative saying, hey, you only have this much time, or you can only do this. I worked Kane so many times on live events, and it was an experience of a lifetime. But the guy's a complete sweetheart. Like, he knows his stuff. He's been doing this for years. Hands down, one of the top, 2-3 big men in the business. So not only you're learning from this guy, but to be in the ring and be able to put on, fun matches for the crowd, like that was a high point for me when I was, in the run of doing, because you'd be quote unquote married to a guy in the ring. And for a while, me and Glenn were, joined at the hip, and yeah, it was a great experience. A guy like him. Recently, obviously, Roman's like the complete package for a wrestler. So being in the ring with a guy with his timing, you can't teach that kind of thing, like the timing. And as far as guys that are currently wrestling right now, Aleister Black comes to mind as a guy that he needs to be doing a little bit more, but the whole creative thing, I don't know.
Yeah, it's nuts back there, man. I wanted to say something in Spanish for Spanish-speaking audience, even this is going to have subtitles. Erick
Yep.
Rowan, o actualmente Erick Redbeard, tiene disponible su Cameo, aparece como Joe Rod WWE Erick Rowan, disponible en Cameo para saludarlos a todos ustedes para cumpleaños, graduaciones o simplemente un consejo. Este es el caballero que les puede brindar ese consejo que tanto necesitan. Tiene además de eso prowrestlingtees.com/Erick Redbeard disponible toda su mercancía increíble, de hecho tuve la oportunidad de verla y está disponible en las redes sociales en Instagram y en Twitter como Erick Redbeard, también para todos nuestros amigos promotores en Panamá como GWE, en Chile como Wrestling Superstar, Perú que tiene Imperio, tienes en JCW en Florida, todas nuestras amistades en Puerto Rico. Él está disponible para bookings en todo el mundo. Una vez obviamente esta situación pase, pueden contactarlo a través de Joseph Rudd, R-U-U-D 06 @gmail.com, josephrudd06 @gmail.com. Lo vamos a dejar de igual manera en la descripción. We're going to leave everything on the comment section, and in the description is probably going to be already up here once this is edited. Let's talk about your current projects. I had the opportunity to listen to the interview you did with Sportskeeda's Stephanie Chase. Great interviewer, in my opinion. But you mentioned that you were working on a film. What can you tell us about that?
So I got an opportunity right after I got released, actually, to have a role in a upcoming movie called Ghost of the Ozarks. It was one of the first films actually being filmed after the whole COVID thing. So they had crazy COVID testing. But actually, that was a great experience for me. It's just a different, side of the entertainment business. And I found it very rewarding, and I'm very proud of the work I put in, as well as the work of the other actors. And, there were some pretty high caliber actors that in the movie that I was in awe of what they did. So I'm very excited for that project to be released. I can't really, say too much about it. Just that it was a great experience, and you never know what life throws at you, and what kind of opportunities happen outside of the bubble that you're currently in. I was in the WWE bubble for so long that when you get shoved aside, you feel like all that was for nothing. That's how you feel initially when you talk about how you're released, and you put in all this work and you do everything you can. You put in the days, the long nights, sleepless nights, basically, because it isn't just what you see on television. We're traveling all around the world and working. And when you're thrown to the side like that, you feel like a little helpless. You feel like, maybe, was I good enough? You have that doubt in your head, but you shouldn't have that doubt in your head, because you know who you are and you know what you're capable of. So just putting myself out there and doing something different, kind of gets that confidence back up and makes you excited for the future, no matter what it is.
And we'll definitely know you have a bright future once this situation is over. Either it's in pro wrestling, which we really hope so, or the Hollywood cinematographic industry. Mr. Redbeard, last but not least, there's a complicated situation in the pro wrestling industry that's been even more complicated after the pandemic situation that we're in right now. And it's that thousands of people they just stop watching pro wrestling due to they're frustrated, due to they feel they're not being heard. Not only WWE, I mean, All Elite Wrestling, Impact Wrestling, Ring of Honor, New Japan, basically everywhere. I mean, except for Mexico, all of the other countries, pro wrestling fan base have decreased significantly. In your opinion, you've been in this industry for so long and you're really wise about it. What do you think the multiple companies need to do at this point in order to attract a bigger fan base?
First off, the product has changed so much just in the last 6-7 years. I feel like the star power. Like there's the names. Like you say a certain name in the street, odds are most people won't even know who that is. I think Randy might be a name. John Cena definitely is a name. But like besides him, maybe Randy or like the Big Show. Most people know who the Big Show is. But besides that and those marquee names, do they have a marquee name? Do most people know who Drew McIntyre is?
Yeah.
They should. Incredibly talented. He's showing the most character he's ever shown in his career during this run that he's having. But like, as far as mainstream marquee names, they didn't make them. They weren't pushing to have these people be these stars that they are. They should be bigger stars. And how do you make that star? How do you get people to tune in? And I don't know what the answer to that is. Is it them allowing people to do more things outside the company to draw in interest? Is it better storylines? And that's where it is. Why is interest falling down? And, you have companies starting up and they can't break the million mark to get over. And it's like, well, how do you get that company to get over a threshold? I think I tried to watch Impact the other day, and it's hard to find. Like, you have to go online and you watch it, and it's like, okay, well, it has a television deal. It's like most people don't have that station. And like the numbers to SmackDown, I feel like should be way better. I think when they moved to Fox, I think it was like almost 4 million was the first, and that was last year.
Yeah.
And I don't know what numbers are now, but I don't think they're even close to that 4 million.
1.6 million viewers, I think, was the last rating.
Yeah, and I don't know if that. I mean, you can blame part of that on crowd, because when I turned it on initially, I'm sure it's changed the way it's presented now. But initially, when I turned it on, it just wasn't fun to watch in an arena that was empty. Like, it wasn't a fun product to watch. I would like to see more story-driven, like feuds. I don't know if they're starting to do that now or not. I don't really watch too much of the product. Still a little bitter, but give me a month and I'll probably start watching more. But I think they need to create more mainstream stars, get them to do things outside of wrestling, more appearances outside of wrestling to draw interest to get these people in. And I think the more story-driven, I think it would draw in people because they would want to watch like a soap opera every week. I mean, as crazy as my feud with Daniel was, and Roman was, it was a story. Every week you had to tune in to find out what was going to happen. They drew it out to a crazy amount, but it's no different than some of these soap operas you watch every week. And I think they need to start doing more stuff like that, just to draw more interest. But yeah, there's no definite answer on what's going to make the business draw in better numbers. There's no definite. I just hope it has another boom. I hope it does.
We all do at this point. They need to start constructing this next mainstream huge guy like they did with John Cena, like they started to do with Roman Reigns. But they need it, and they need it now. Not only WWE, every single company at this point. Mr. Eric,
it's like they're not fighting with just other wrestling programs. They're not fighting with just network television. There's so much content out there right now. You're fighting with people that have Hulu and watching reruns of shows that were made years ago. You're competing with
Netflix, Amazon.
Netflix, Amazon Prime. There's so much content. I don't barely go on regular cable and try to watch a show. because I'm always watching these shows. Like I think I just finished the season 7 of Workaholics. You know, I'd never seen it before. So there's all this content that's been out there for years that people are starting to watch again. And there's only so many hours in a day. People got to work. You know, you can't be watching everything live like you used to. So maybe it's, I don't know if it's what their numbers are for sales and stuff like that, but you know, that might be part of the problem too. People's attention spans are going so many different directions.
Yeah, with the return of the NBA right now, you have also a difficult situation for all of the pro wrestling industry. All the sports leagues, UFC returned with an incredible product also. It's kind of a complicated situation that I really hope so. Every company gets over this difficult time for the best of the industry.
Yeah.
Mr. Erick, thank you so much for your time. We always wish you the best of lucks on this new pathway of your career, which is acting. And we hope to see you once again in a pro wrestling ring. Thank you so much for your time, and we wish you the best of lucks.
Thank you.
Thank you.